In this video, I'm going to talk about the China affirmative that Harker and a lot of other schools on the topic have read. All right, so the next affirmative that we're going to talk about is one of the most popular affirmatives on the topic, and that is the China affirmative. So I'm not sure if people are going to read this at Marlborough or not, but I think we should be prepared for it because I've seen Harker read this in the past. So rather than specify a specific type of autonomous weapon, they specify a specific country. So they say China should ban its autonomous weapons. So the first piece of evidence says that lethal autonomous submarines, AI submarines, I'm not sure that these are autonomous, but that's a different debate. These AI submarines are going to cause a nuclear war and nuclear escalation between the United States and China, and that specifically happens in the South China Sea, and that war will use autonomous hypersonic weapons, a different type of lethal autonomous weapon that China and the US would have in this scenario. That would be a type of missile, AI missile, that Russia is currently testing, and probably the United States and other countries, that is a new type of missile that is autonomous, that people say escalates to nuclear war at a higher threshold than our current weapons do. And then they read a specific piece of evidence talking about how Chinese laws cause escalation, and then talk about another specific type of lethal autonomous weapon. So basically, they say the US and China are going to come to a head with one another. They're going to lead to war because of these lethal autonomous weapons. They specify submarines, this blowfish thing, and which I actually think is a sub, but I could be wrong. Or it's not. But that's beside the point. What matters is that this is about China and the US having conflict over lethal autonomous weapons, and the affirmative would prevent that by just getting rid of China's so there wouldn't be any conflict. The second contention that they have is called arms race. It says that China is arms racing now. Basically, China can't arms race if the affirmative bans their lethal autonomous weapons. So they get rid of this arms race by getting rid of only China's. And then they say that this arms race would lead to a bunch of really bad impacts, and you all should be pretty familiar with what this looks like, because almost everybody's making similar arguments to this. This is just specific to China. This affirmative, and I don't think that they'll read this, but then this affirmative reads a specific subpoint to this contention that is specific to Chinese AI, and why Chinese AI is bad, and that why China having a military advantage would be bad. So that is the basis for the China affirmative. Somebody else could read this. Again, this is really popular. One thing to note is that you'll note that the framing for this happens on the bottom. Some people don't put the value criteria into the framework, or whatever you'd like to call it, on the top first. Some of them put it on the bottom. So you'll notice that they just have, again, pretty much a basic extinction util framework like most planned affirmatives do, which is really no big deal to us. So we'll talk about what we specifically want to do against this affirmative. But again, this is an affirmative that Harker has read that says China, the People's Republic of China, ought to ban lethal autonomous weapons. And that's the affirmative. So that was the second AF that we might encounter at Marlborough. Stay tuned for the third one. I'll see you next time.